Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Before we get into things here tonight, we need to pay tribute to a wonderful man and a great racer. James Mallow was one of the most dedicated Formula Renault 3.5 drivers in all of iRacing. If you signed into an iRacing session, it was a given that James would be in practice. He was a fierce competitor, equally entertaining and uplifting to his competitors. They called him Mr. 3.5 for a reason, and tonight, all the drivers on track that you'll see here in this Interlagos race here on Apex Racing TV are using the colors that he used on all of his liveries in his honor. He may be gone, but he is not forgotten, and tonight we all race in honor of him. We now pause for a quick moment of silence. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome here to Apex Racing TV, and once again, for one last time here from the official Formula 3.5s. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth tonight is Aaron Smith, and in the virtual production hall, we have our old buddy Josh Wilkie. Here tonight, we say goodbye to the series. This is week 12 of season 1 in 2024, and as announced not very long ago, this series will unfortunately be discontinued as the start of the 2024 season 2 nears in just about 8 days' time. Upon this news, a community came together and raise some money to take this race here and put it on Apex Racing TV, make this broadcast happen. So before we get on any further, we'd like to applaud the strength of this community even as the series slowly comes to a close. Now, I don't have much experience commentating this series, only a solo broadcast last summer at Spa, but my colleague Aaron has. So to pass this off to you, buddy, just talk us through what we should expect here at Interlagos.
I mean, expect the absolute finest of racing, and hopefully should be just as good as I remember it. This track and car combination definitely holds a special place in my heart, as it was the first live broadcast I ever did. Not only just in general, but here on Apex. I remember September of 2022, I decided to give this thing a shot. And this was the track and car combination that I was introduced to that day. And it's definitely will not be forgotten by me. I do love these cars. They were such a joy to drive and to watch. And, well, although we're saying goodbye to this car, hopefully the new Super Formula Light, which I believe is the car to replace this one, will provide just as much entertainment. And we can see some guys that compete in this series over there. So here's hoping that this will spark a bright future for the B tier of Formula Racing. But as we look at qualifying at the moment, seems just as good as I remember it. Zamborski up there, but at the moment it's Duresho who has grabbed pole for this final race ever in this car.
I'll take a look at the starting grid now for this Interlagos race. Hopefully we have a fantastic race here. I'm sure we will. The Spa race I commentated last summer was absolutely awesome, and I'm sure tonight's race will be no different. We'll take a look at the starting grid now, and as you pointed out, Aaron, it is a familiar name running up towards the front of the running order here in this qualifying session, and it is going to be your pole sitter is going to be Derecho there at the front, Zamborski there in P number 2, Jorge Lopez in 3rd, Josh Stewart in 4th. That's going to be Shirakawa in P number 5, James Byrne in 6th, Cal Young in 7th. That's going to be the P8 starter of Eric Virangobowski there in at P number 8. That's going to be Freckleton in 9th, a name that I recognize from the Radical broadcast here on Apex Racing TV earlier on in the week, and Cornu will round at your top 10. You can look at the rest of the drivers here. Zephyris will be in P number 11. That's going to be Orbaslack, my apologies, in P number 12, Phil Reed, Boz, Holt, Walker, Tangretta, and that'll be Bourgnon in P number 18. You can go through the rest of the drivers now. The grid has populated now, and we're going to get the start here of this final ever F3.5 broadcast in just a few moments' time. Interlagos, a fantastic track. Hey, Formula One isn't using it as their season finale. The F3.5s may as well. It's a wonderful track, has a lot of rich history around it. It's been tweaked on over the years, but still a wonderful track and a fitting send, I feel. You can see all the wonderful purple, black, and yellow cars paying tribute to a fallen comrade of all these 3.5 drivers who passed away back in May of last year. We're racing in his honor and hoping to put on the best race we can. The 5 lights are going to go out, and after that, the drivers will be on their way now, heading into turn number 1. It's a pretty good start there from some drivers farther in the back, some shuffling continuing already, but leading the field into turn number 1 is going to be Edward Samborski there. He is leading the field now, and you can see drivers still going side by side farther through the field as you go through the Senna S's, go through turn number 3 and hit that back straightaway for the first time.
Absolutely textbook stuff from Edward. It's very much how I remember this series. He was absolutely dominant season after season, and well, it looks like it's the exact same as I remember it all those years ago. And the same thing that I remembered, Yuki Shirakawa is an absolutely just, he's amazing at starting in these cars, and he got a great launch up into 4th. Couldn't quite make the gains he wanted to. He nearly got himself up into 3rd, but just couldn't find the gap to squeeze it into. But very good start nonetheless from the Japanese driver. I think this race for him is on at like 7 in the morning, which a dedication from this man. He turns up pretty much every single time one of these broadcasts is on. He's an absolute animal racing at that early of a time. It might even be even earlier than that, but he's an absolute weapon in these cars, and I can expect him to possibly fight for a podium as further up. Fighting for the last spots on the podium at the moment is Duresho and Josh Stewart as they go side by side into turn 1. Fairly textbook overtake from the Spaniard up into 2nd place. On pole, of course, but just fell back a couple places on that first lap. But has put himself back into 2nd, and hopefully will be able to chase down Zamborski in the lead.
What is so important here in these Formula 3.5 cars is just mastering that wheel spin coming off the line. That's the reason why your pole sitter Duresho had such a terrible start there. I mean, he didn't have the worst start in the world, I should say. He's still running in 2nd, but that gap between himself and Samborski there in P1 is 1.2 seconds already. So really, what he needs to do at this stage is, I wouldn't say get his act together, so to speak, but just really get his nose on the grindstone and just start working on clawing up the field. We're following Shirakawa now, running in P number 4, running as well as he is in this race at, well, is it 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe even earlier in Japan. That takes some dedication. I don't even think I could run now at the most able-minded at points in the day there. So the fact he's running P4 at this early stage of the race is quite impressive. We're still very early on. 27 laps for these drivers to negotiate, and they're about to start lap 3 here. It's a good start there for Samborski, who still continues to pull away from Duresho there in P number 2 and sets the fastest lap of the race along with it.
I remember when I did one of these broadcast races last year. That's Phil Reed going up into 12th place. He's another driver who's fairly quick in these cars as well, so watch him over the course of this race. But I remember one time when I did do these races as, again, drivers going side by side. This is Shirakawa, who I did mention is very, very speedy round the outside of Stewart. That's going to be an incredible move if he can get that one completed. Inside line 4, turn 6 now, and has got it done. Very good move from the Japanese driver, who is probably just struggling from tiredness right now, but he's doing a fantastic job. Up onto the podium he goes. But carry on from what I was saying. The one time I did do a broadcast in these cars, it was very, very tricky. Not only do you have to worry about the tyre wear towards the end of the race, the lateral grip in these cars is not very much. You have to be super, super cautious getting on throttle, otherwise the back end will just step out from you really quickly, and then there's not much else you can do at all. It's very, very difficult to recover from this car. It's why it kind of has fallen away a little bit. It's very tricky to drive, but if you do get it right, it feels really, really good, I have to say. And I will miss this car very, very much. As that's Denny Cornu trying to defend from Wierzymski. This is for 8th place. The Frenchman who is an absolute veteran in these cars. I've seen him race many a time in these 3.5 cars, and I've actually seen him a couple times in Le Mans Ultimate recently, I believe. Yeah, I think it's the same person. They have the same name, so I'm just assuming that it's Cornu, who's also racing in Le Mans Ultimate. So he's expanding his roster of cars that he's driving, but so going well in 8th place at the moment.
A pretty good start from a lot of these drivers. We haven't seen many mistakes, really none at all. The driver right now, Tangretta, currently running in P18, is a little bit farther back. You can see 45 seconds. We may have a quick little replay to see what in the world happened to him. Farther in the back, did not have the best start. And you can see, even at the time we're taking a look at this replay, he was running well farther back, and just a quick little off, going through turn number 1 and spins after going through a quick little lawn mowing session, entering corner number 2 there. Interlagos, especially this scan of the track, which is fairly old, it is not forgiving at all. You have grass runoff where there usually is asphalt now in real life. The layout is a little bit different nowadays. The pit entry is a bit slowed down compared to the one that we have here, so you can see the grass runoff in the Senna S's there. Real life now, that is pretty much entirely paved over, so just quick little mistake there, but hopefully Interlagos gets rescanned in the future. It's a wonderful track, and I'm sure all these drivers are enjoying it. It's a wonderful addition here to the season calendar.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Interlagos is one of my more favorite tracks. It's a decent track. We were talking about this just before, and I think there's an incident further up. That's Baz, who's had a spin. His rear wing looks a little bit worse for wear as these drivers go all the way past him. I don't know how the top of his rear wing has been damaged. I don't know if that's just something visually wrong for me. I think it is. I think his rear wing is fine. No, actually, I think his rear wing is damaged. So we're gonna have a look at. It's really, really strange, and a bit of a spin there, and he did take a whack at the rear, so maybe that's why his rear wing looks a bit off. I'm not sure, but gonna be a little bit difficult for him to recover, as damage in this car is very, very treacherous, and not only affects your straight line speed, it just affects the drivability of this car. And yeah, Michael, who was always who was involved in that one as well, had to, I believe, come in for a pit stop to fix his damage, as that would have been a nasty whack. As Baz has been overtaken by Holt now into the first corner, and I believe the Australian is just going to go further and further back as this race goes on.
We've got some hard action here going down the back straightaway, entering corner number 4 here. That's Esposito there on the outside, trying to get the move done here to move into the top 6. Young, he's going side by side with as they enter corner number 6. Now there's going to be some hard fault stuff. They're still holding it side by side. Very bold racing from these two, but they got to be careful because Cornu will be looking to pick up the pieces if these two come to blows. And there you also have Wieranowski there in P number 9. Very close pack here in the midfield. Currently Lopez in P6 all the way down to Freckleton in at P number 10, separated by about 3.5 seconds, a little bit more than that actually, but still fairly close stuff here in the midfield. All these drivers looking for any way to get past each other. I will say DRS is active with this race, with these sessions. I believe it's 8 DRS uses that they have at their disposal here in these official F3.5 races, but they have to use that strategically. They can't just burn it up here in the first 7 laps, because when it comes time for the final 20, they'll just basically be sitting ducks. So at this stage, strategy is playing a bit of a role even though these races don't actually have pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. I think if this race was a little bit longer, we might have some pit stops involved, but it is very, very treacherous over the course of a race. You do have to manage a little bit. And also something we've not talked about this broadcast yet is the fact that these guys have DRS. It's not the DRS that we're used to in most other racing series, where a rear wing flap opens at the back of the rear wing. It's actually the opposite. There's a little flap that closes and stalls the rear wing, and that is what gives it the straight line benefit. I believe just the standard one that we have nowadays is a lot simpler, works a little bit better, and I don't really know why these Formula 3.5 cars decided to go with this way of trying to create DRS, but nonetheless they gave it a good go. Here's what happened to Joe Walker, who's had some kind of incident. I think he might have just maybe gone a bit deep into a corner or lit up the rear tyres a bit too much in there, and kept it well held. Nicely done, but has definitely overheated those tyres, and should be a little bit tough from here on out. And
these cars are really tough, really. Yeah. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, Aaron, but these cars are really unforgiving. If you have any sort of contact, this car does have the old damage model. It doesn't have the new one that we have nowadays. So if you have any sort of bend in one of your wings, it'll basically be like you're dragging a parachute going down the long straightaways to end off this lap, especially exiting Junso, turn number 12, heading into the Senna S there in turn number 1. That is basically, I think probably about a mile-long stretch. Maybe, well, I think that mile's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a very long flat out blast to end this lap. So if you have any sort of aerodynamic damage on these cars, it is really tough to try and recover from that unless you come into the pits to try and fix that. We have had some drivers pull into pit lane already. I think they must have had just some extensive damage that was really eating away at their lap times. Tangretta, who we saw go off through the grass earlier on in this race, set a 1:25, I believe his last lap was, which is about 5 seconds off some of the drivers running up towards the front of this field. So it just shows you these cars are extremely tricky, really aero sensitive, especially when it comes to the damage, and you don't want to overheat those tires in the slightest, because if you do, a new tire model here in iRacing, if you just have a small little bit of adverse temperature in those tires, you're in for a world of hurt.
You're in for big doo-doo, I think is the technical term used by professionals in Michelin. That's definitely... I mean, I've said this in this series before, as this is Oberschlack trying to overtake Zafaris into turn 4. That was a fairly easy move made there, and moves himself up into 12th place. That was fairly textbook. So Zafaris tries to come back at him around the outside of turn 6. Not really a move you see too often, and he does back out in the end. But I have said this a couple times whenever we have done this series, the fact that this car is kind of old, and these tyres do kind of look like squares. And oftentimes towards the end of the race, they kind of handle like squares. So yeah, this older car does show its age sometimes, but that's kind of why people love it. It's those older cars on iRacing so unrealistic that it's fun. Like we were talking about this before the broadcast, that you have some older cars on this service that, you know, we know are terrible, but we love it, and this is one of those. Oh, it's Yuki Shirakawa going for a half spin, and I think Stuart being there actually saved him from doing a whole loop-de-loop, as not sure how much damage that would have caused for Stewart as they're going nearly 3 wide. None of them, I don't think, are using DRS. I think Stewart actually is. He's pulling away a little bit now. Shirakawa's gone for a bit of a dive bomb into there. Can't quite get it side by side with the Australian, but now he has to battle with Byrne and Lopez behind, going nearly 3 wide into turn 6. Not enough room on the outside for Shirakawa. Now Byrne's going to try and look up the inside. Shirakawa holds it nicely round the outside. Byrne now has the inside, which will turn into the outside for this next corner. It's just switching back and forth between these two. A little bit of contact there, but Shirakawa just about edges ahead. Byrne now back up the inside. They've been side by side for about half a lap at this point. Jorge Lopez is trying to get involved now as well. He's just looking on in awe, trying to see what opportunities he can have to try and get past both of them, as Shirakawa just tucks in behind. I think both of them are using DRS. It is extremely hard to tell in this car from an outside point of view, but here's Byrne trying to defend the inside. Oftentimes defending the inside into this first corner can leave you really vulnerable on the exit. Shirakawa makes a bit of contact with him. Byrne goes wide. Lopez is now going to try get the over-under on Shirakawa. I think Shirakawa got a poor exit there, and Byrne should be safe from an attack from the Japanese driver. Hurtling down to turn 4 we go. The Spaniard trying to go up the inside of Shirakawa. This is kind of a repeat of what happened on the last lap. They're so close to contact, but I think Shirakawa is just going to hold on. He's got the inside line for this next corner, and I've said this before, it's really difficult to hold the outside line through here, and it's just about settled down. They've gone single file, and wow, that was a good about lap and a half of battling between all 5 of these cars. And they all made it through relatively cleanly, and Joshua Stewart is pulsating now up into 3rd place.
He is basically running all by himself now. We're taking a look at a replay of the action that was going on there involving Stewart and all the other drivers around him. We're seeing going around the outside of corner number 1. That was the spin that really started it off. You can see there, that was, as you said, Aaron, Stewart really saved that from being any sort of bigger off. That could have been absolute tears. For all of those drivers, I'm shocked. There has to be some sort of damage on Stewart's car. Maybe we'll see as he goes through corner number 1. Is there some sort of side pod damage on the side of that car? It doesn't look like it. I guess these F3.5 cars are built out of tungsten or something like that, because that was a fairly substantial whack, all things considered. So the fact that he held onto that is truly unbelievable. The fact there's no damage on that car. You don't want to get floor damage or side pod damage on any sort of Formula car, whether it be the F4 cars that we saw earlier. Ooh, that was a big snap there from Josh Stewart as he went through corner number 4 there. So that's going to bring Byrne and Shirakawa back into that fight, but only slightly. It's about 6/10 of a second separating those two drivers. Currently, I gotta wonder if this fight is going to heat up once again. Currently, the gaps between Stewart and really all the way back to Cornu in P8, it's basically nothing. Stewart is about 10.4 seconds back of the leader, then going back to Cornu, who's only about 2 seconds or about 3 seconds behind. It is a very, very close fight right now, but I think Stewart is looking to say, hey, look, I gotta get the heck out of here. That hard-fought battling, no thank you. I want to keep my car on the track. I don't want to be battling with anyone, and I just want to bring this car home in one piece.
Yeah, honestly, in this car, it's actually cause for celebration if you make it to the end of the race. Not only because it's very difficult to manage this car and to tame it, but just the battling that you have with other people. It can end so quickly. This car is very sensitive, and you just got to baby it throughout this entire race. So, honestly, for the drivers who make it to the checkered flag on this last broadcast, whatever doing on this car, just, you know, round of applause. You've all made it home in one piece. Mostly for some of these guys. This car does still run the old damage model, so, you know, I don't think pieces really ever do come off that regularly. Here's Phil Reed going up the inside on Freckleton. This is for 10th place. He's moved himself up into the top 10. Got a bit of a gap to the cars in front, but like I said, Phil Reed is a fairly snappy driver. I expect him to maybe get a couple more places today as he puts down some good lap times for the final time.
Currently, this race has been fairly clean, and we're about 19 minutes in so far. There's only been like single car mistakes, a few drivers coming to blows, but really compared to the Apex Racing Academy F4 broadcast that we were just on, as we're seeing Samborski start to lap some of these drivers. I believe that's Bourgnon in a P number 19, P number 16 that he just lapped there. So far, compared to the Apex Racing Academy F4 broadcast that we just did here on Apex Racing TV, really night and day difference between those hothead drivers beating and banging and crashing into each other. Compared to these drivers in the officials, they don't want to risk their safety rating. They just want to put on a good show and have some hard-fought racing here. So that could be the reason why these drivers are staying quite clean. Samborski hasn't really put a foot wrong, currently 7.8 seconds ahead of Duresho there in P number 2. Then I wonder, will Duresho and Stewart start to battle between now and the checkered flag? Because Stewart is still within striking distance there of Byrne. The gap between those two isn't too big, less than a second separating those two drivers. So unless Stewart has a big turn of pace here between now and the checkered flag, I think he may be at risk of losing that podium position, which would be great news for Duresho there in P2.
Yeah, and what we're seeing this race is kind of what I've been used to, every single time I've raced and watched this broadcast. It's Samborski at the top by a long, long way. This is how it usually goes. And maybe it's good that we finally knock Eddie off his high horse and say goodbye to this car. And let's see how good he can tame the Super Formula. He's been dominating this series for years. It comes to an end eventually. I mean, right,
fair enough.
We all thought the Lewis Hamilton domination era would never end, and now it's replaced with a new one, which is even worse. So, every domination comes to an end at some point.
I think we may not have to talk about Formula One for the simple sake that our producer Josh has not actually seen the Bahrain Grand Prix that happened earlier today. I will say we should also not talk about Formula One in fear of striking some kind of fury in the YouTube chat, so I think we'll just stay focused on the action here in these F3.5 cars. Still a massive pack between Stewart and Young there in P number 7. Cornu has actually dropped back just a little bit now, a second separating himself and Young there. We're riding on board with Jorge Lopez Esposito in the number 9 car. We'll see. Will he go for a move? Ooh, that was, I believe that is Bourgnon, or I think that was Bourgnon. That was very slow in the middle section, just trying to get out of everyone's way, not try and strike fury here in these officials. Currently 17 cars still left out on track, 15 on the lead lap. Walker is the only retirement from this race so far, dropped out of this race about 8 laps ago, so he will be the last place runner, and then 9 laps down after Samborski just set the fastest lap of the race last time by. So even though we're about over halfway through this 27 lap race here, Samborski is still putting down absolute greasers of lap times.
I mean, if he does end up winning this race, he's going to be on 9,100 iRacing, which is a lot for those of you who don't know. It's quite a bit. It's nearly double my iRacing, which is just... I don't even, wow, like that is incredible. I mean, we've got some other drivers in here who are fairly high. We've got Duresho, who's nearly 7k. Josh Stewart is like 5k. James Byrne is 6.5. These guys are fairly high, but then Samborski is sort of on another level. And well, I mean, after the amount of races I've seen him win, I can't say I'm surprised at all. It's, I think the lowest I ever have seen him was 7k. So he's come a long way since, and maybe he can get good in the Super Formula Lights when that comes out, and maybe go on for the 10k, as that series hopefully will be very popular. I'm looking forward to it very much. It looks like an interesting car from what we've seen so far. I believe iRacing put out the first video of it yesterday. And looks really good as Samborski sets another fastest lap as he just is about half a second quicker than anyone else. Well, actually, eat my words, Lopez has gone even quicker, trying to overtake Yuki Shirakawa. Might have been a bit of DRS usage there from Lopez trying to overtake Yuki, but either way, he's gone quicker than Samborski by about 100th, so fair play. He's going well at the moment, but has got some cars in front of him that he'd probably prefer to be in front
I honestly have a feeling that Samborski leading this race by 9.8 seconds at this stage doesn't really care too much about the fastest lap. It would be nice icing. No, actually, no, it'd be a cherry on top of the milkshake there. But I think at this stage, he doesn't really care about the fastest lap too much. He has the advantage now. We have about 10 laps to go here. He'll be starting lap 18 when he hits that start-finish straightaway in just a few moments' time. Dominant so far in this race, trying to extend that gap north of 1 second. Duresho there still maintain. Actually, no, he's slowly falling into the crutches, I feel, of Stewart there in P3. The gap was about 3 seconds not very long ago. Now it's teetering around the 2 second barrier. Could we see Stewart and Duresho get involved in a fight as Samborski now tries to challenge that fastest lap of the race throne? We'll see if anyone can try and beat him this time by. My eyes are out on Lopez. We'll see what lap he just did. He did not able to challenge him. He was actually a little bit slower there as Burns sets his personal best lap of the race at a 1-minute 20.6 there. So these drivers still pushing quite hard. The tire management is a big role in these races, as you said earlier on in the broadcast, Aaron. Sometimes these cars can feel like you're driving on squares because the tires certainly look like them, especially towards the end of these races. Tangretta is in the pit lane. Not sure what happened to him. Might have had a pit stop to contend with. Maybe you can see him trundling down pit road, exiting now. So I think now in the world, not sure what in the world happened to him. Maybe just some creative interpretation of the blue flag laws getting out of the way of all the drivers and trying to have a clean stretch between now and the checkered flag. He's 2 laps down at this stage, hopelessly out of contention. He's just going around there for a lap, trying to enjoy this experience driving these cars around Interlagos, which has proved to be a decent combination. We've seen some hard racing, especially that just absolutely awesome mid-pack fight not very long ago. However, besides that, we've seen these drivers really be in their own lane and just take it easy and try and bring it home.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier on. That just bringing this car home is an achievement, and should be very proud if you end up doing that, especially in this last race. Here comes Lopez. Most certainly that was a DRS usage. He was gaining on Yuki very quickly, but can he get it done? Yuki squirming in the middle of that corner, but still just about manages to hold it onto the track as Lopez sets a personal best on that last lap, but I don't think it was legal. I do not think so. There was not a legal lap. He got off track somewhere. As Cao Young, who's another driver who is fairly rapid in these cars as well, trying to battle with Denny Cornu up in 7th place. 2 drivers who are fairly experienced in this 3.5 machine, but to be fair, most of the guys who drive this car are experienced, so it's very difficult to beat them. I do remember the first time coming into this race, and I was like, oh, I should be able to, get a top 5 pretty easily. I hold myself in high regard. I could barely make it into the top 10. These guys are something else in this car, and well, that's Cao Young going off of the track as Zamborski sets another fastest lap. But Cao Young just completely missed the braking. Oh, it was Cornu. My apologies. Wow, I cannot read a timing screen to save my life, and it's what I do every weekend. Wow, I do apologize. It was Denny Cornu who completely missed his braking zone and actually kind of got beached on the outside curb there.
He got stuck on, I guess it's the lattice there on the outside of corner number 12. Actually, before he entered that corner number 12 there, just got stuck going through that very long, exit curb there, just caught him out badly. I've seen some other drivers get beached on the curb in the past there, mainly coming out of corner number 3 with that pretty big curb. I've seen drivers spin on that curb like a top in the past, even in Formula 1 for that matter. I've seen plenty of drivers spinning their way through that runoff area. I was going to mention there about Cao Young's car. I saw some Rikmatech logos on there, and actually there's a Rikmatech series on here. It's a Rikmatech World Challenge and the Rikmatech Touring Car Cup. You can tune into those broadcasts every Monday here on Apex Racing TV, Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. So anyone here from North America tuning into the stream, you can check out those streams here on Apex Racing TV. I'm definitely not just saying that because I do the officiating for that, and I'm legally obligated to mention them as much as I can to actually pay for my salary there. But Samborski sets another fast lap of the race a 1 minute 20.162. So he is trying to extend that gap now in the later stages of this race. Lap 21 we're on now, not very long left to go, as an 11.3 second gap, as Derecho is still about a 2-second gap. Oh no, as we see Lopez making contact with Byrne as they went side by side, coming through corner number 1. That is very reminiscent of Nico Hulkenberg and Lewis Hamilton crashing here back at the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix in that very dramatic championship finale there. We're taking a look at a replay of what caused that. Could be a bit of rear lock, could have just been two drivers fighting for the same piece of real estate on the racetrack we're having a look at now, and it's just a small little bit of contact there results in tears. Thankfully, I don't think they have too much suspension damage. Hopefully they don't have too much suspension damage, although that was a fairly hefty whack to those wheels. We're riding on board with James Byrne with this incident here. You can see a send there heading into corner number 1, and yeah, hard racing between those two drivers. They're seeing the checkered flag come out in the not too distant future, and I think they were feeling that, okay, it's crunch time. I really have to put on a good result here and try and go for a move, just really misjudge it heading into 1.
The fact that I knew exactly what you were talking about with the Hulkenberg-Hamilton thing, is that sad, or am I just a nerd? I mean, I did watch that race, albeit when I was 8, so I don't know how I remember it at all, but I mean, yeah, I am a massive nerd when it comes to Formula 1. But anyway, here is James Byrne trying to get back past Shirakawa after serving his slowdown at this next very corner that he had that unfortunate incident with Lopez on that last lap, as Yuki seems to be just a tiny bit slower than Byrne, but he's going to give it a good old go and try and fight back anyway. I don't think either of these guys are using DRS. It's just a straight fight all the way into turn 4. Bit of contact. Ooh. But I think they're going to get away with it, and Yuki just has to sit back in P5 as Cornu and Wierzymski go wheel to wheel, pushing Cornu all the way out to the white lines. I think the pole has managed to get up into 7th place. The Frenchman not able to fight back up the inside, but Wierzymski holds it well and up into 7th place. Good move there from Eric. And Denny, not really too much he could have done there, but either way, good clean racing. And honestly, that last lap is the only big incident we've really had so far this race.
Yeah, surprisingly so, and Aaron, don't worry about being a nerd. I am a racing nerd myself, so I can't really judge you too much for that. This is Phil Reed trying to look for a move here on Freckleton, heading into, I believe that was corner number 10 there. That would have been a very bold move. It didn't work for Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon when they came to blows there in 2019, bringing up some more F1 lore here, but still, Dylan Freckleton, a name that I recognized in the Radical season finale here on Apex Racing TV yesterday, actually, at Donington Park. He was running well in that race. My co-commentator for that series, J.R. Gregory, complimented the name. It is a very British name, Freckleton, as he's now going side by side with a fellow Brit, Reed, heading into corner number 1. Hopefully these two drivers don't come to blows like we saw a few laps ago. Some of the drivers running in the top 10, they get through there cleanly. Phil Reed is making his way into the top 10 with just a few laps to go here in this race, lap 23 of 27. It's getting to crunch time for these drivers. I think we're going to see them start to break their elbows as we're looking at this fight here with Cornu on the inside there, going into, that was corner number 10, my apologies, corner number 6 and 7 they went through there. 10 is coming up later on in just a few moments time there. Wierzynski tried to go for a move around the outside. That would have been bold. Now he's trying to go for the move into the inside of turn 10. They made contact there, and they actually kept it going there. Ooh, Wierzynski had a big snap there, but he still held onto that position there. I was expecting both of those drivers to go spinning like a top. The fact they managed to keep it going, not fast, but they still kept it on the racing surface and didn't spin around there is truly unbelievable considering the contact they just had.
Yeah, it was a slight tap and maybe a bit desperate from Wierzymski coming into this next corner. He was very, very far back, and I think Cornu saw him coming and tried to leave him room at the last minute, and you know, fair play to both of them for keeping it on the track. But yeah, it's just a bit desperate from Wierzymski. Definitely the one I'd put the blame on. And you can see there, yeah, Cornu saw him at the last second, and actually looked like he didn't really get hit that bad. It was just a slight tap for him. It was Eric who actually got the worst of it, who's now falling under pressure from Lopez, who's trying to come back through the field after his incident with James Byrne a couple laps ago. around the outside of turn 6 doesn't really work, but he's just creeping ahead. And this might actually be the first time this race we might be able to see it work, but unfortunately just gets the next corner all wrong, and we'll have to wait a couple more corners. He definitely has the pace. Of course, he's been matching the leaders at some point, but just kept getting held up in traffic, got caught up in that incident, and well, this race has absolutely flown by. We've only got 2 laps to go.
Absolutely flown by indeed, even though it's been about 34 minutes since we took the start of this race. A little bit of a puff of smoke there. Not sure. There might have been some lawn mowing action with some of the drivers running farther up towards the front. That's a slow car. I think that might have been a driver going off. That's Young, I believe, must have been slow, picked up a slowdown and had to serve that. Meanwhile, Lopez trying to go side by side with Wierzinski heading into corner number 1. He backs out of it, though. That might be a smart move considering what happened earlier on in this race. That's actually the lap car there of Greta, who's going to act like a pick in this fight. Are they going to split the difference here? Oh my god, that was very close to contact as Wierzinski went for a very late move to actually block that off. That was Wierzinski and Lopez very close to crashing into each other, going down the back straightaway. That could have ended in tears if they just slightly misjudged that. Meanwhile, Oberslak, who's had a fairly quiet race, we haven't touched on him too much, is now battling with Reed. Freckleton has made some kind of mistake as he's dropped back off of this fight and has allowed Jacob Oberzak to move into P number 11. So we'll see if he can try and find off some sort of challenge from Reed up ahead. Hopefully these two drivers don't come to blows like we saw from Freckleton when they went into turn number 10 not very long ago. And we'll see. Okay, they keep it clean this time by. That's a corner. Again, it's a good overtaking opportunity, but if you get it slightly wrong, it will end in tears because there's really 1.5 racing grooves coming through that corner. If you just get slightly wrong, you are in for a world of hurt. Someone who's not in for a world of hurt, though, Zamborski, he is on the second to last lap, a 14.5 second gap between himself and Derishow at the front. He is putting on a masterclass of a drive right now.
Can't say I'm surprised at all. This is, I do remember one season where I think he got 11 out of 12 wins. I don't know what he's doing in this 3.5 car, but whatever it is, I mean, he's doing a fantastic job of it. And, well, if he can find another car that drives similar to this, he's going to be one of the best, I can assure you that. He's a fantastic racer, and he's putting on an incredible performance right now. Rounds the last corner for the penultimate time, heading onto the final lap. And I wouldn't be surprised if he saved all of his DRS uses for one final push lap. It's what he usually does if he has a dominant race like this. He just saves all 8 of them for the final lap. So we may as well take you through this last race of this last lap of this last season in this car with probably its most successful driver, and probably about to set the fastest lap of the race as he's most definitely activating DRS, turning his car into turn 4 right now. He's absolutely pushing on this lap. You can tell he's just hustling it, activating DRS once again. He's pushing his way through the rev range to the absolute maximum through to turn 6. Now you can tell that he's running a very front pointy car, and can't say I'm surprised. This is how you drive this car quickly through this downhill left-hander. Very difficult and easy to lock up the brakes. Now through this uphill right-hander, very difficult as well. This whole middle sector in Interlagos can be a challenge. Car there, lapped car, getting out of his way and making his way towards the last proper corner of this track. It's a fairly simple track, but most people love it. And activating DRS there, you can see. And, well, this surely is going to be a fastest lap for Eddie Zamborski, but more importantly, it's going to be his last ever broadcast win in Formula 3.5. Eddie Zamborski wins in Interlagos, and as we predicted, it is a fastest lap of the race for him, and he pushed on that last lap to the absolute maximum, got the most out of the car, and won by nearly 17 seconds. Deresho comes home in second place. Stewart rounds out the podium. They both had some decent pace, but nobody could match Eddie in the end. Byrne, a good comeback as well after that mistake, finishing P4. Shirakawa just didn't have the race pace he wanted. And, well, that was a fantastic race, and I'd say a pretty decent send-off for this car.
I would have to say so. The dominant driver from this car taking a dominant win, nearly getting the fastest lap of the race. It was about 6 thousandths of a second between him and that fastest lap of the race at the end. Well, he still grabbed it, so you can't really say he's disappointed with how it ended, but was just, it was, again, 6 thousandths of a second. If he went a little bit quicker, he would have gone the fastest lap of the race. On the last lap, that would have been one heck of a way to send off this car. We're running on board with him, hoping he does some donuts here. We'll see if he does it. Going through the middle section right now, about to enter turn 6 and 7. Going very slowly right now, running in third gear. I think he still has a DRS. I think he may be wasting some of that DRS right now. He is, actually, no, I think right now we are seeing a little bit of a procession lap, if you would, a parade lap, a tribute lap, if you would. Again, we said at the start of this broadcast, all these drivers are racing in honor of James Mallow, a very valued member of this community. That's a reason why many of the race cars that you see on track right now have those green, purple, and black race cars there. And it was a little bit hard to keep track of everyone with all the cars looking very identical, but still a very fitting tribute here. And I believe all the cars, if I'm not mistaken, have taken the checkered flag in this race now. Some of the drivers a little bit farther back. A few drivers actually dropped out in the very early stages, but this is a very nice tribute here. Hopefully we see some donuts after they complete this little tribute slash parade lap here at the end of the Formula 3.5s. As you said, Aaron, the last 3.5 broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. A league could be formed here. I know a lot of the drivers talking in the forums are very loyal members of the Formula 3.5 community, so maybe as this car gets moved off of the officials and the Formula B series is likely to become the Super Formula Light series, as you hinted at multiple times throughout this broadcast, Aaron, maybe we could see a league race, because all these drivers very passionate about these cars. They enjoy them very, very much, and also they enjoy ending this race. You can see all the drivers now basically on that start finish straight away. It's a nice touching tribute. I believe they're all going to be stopping now and shutting it down here, shutting their cars off with some driver. I thought I was going to see a driver doing a donut farther in the back, and see some puffs of smoke. Driver doing some burnouts, though. We've got a little bit of a smoke show here to round off 27 laps of hard racing action from start to finish. It was a nice, clean-fought battle. We didn't see too many incidents, though, definitely compared to the Apex Racing Academy F4 broadcast that we just had here on Apex Racing TV. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we may get the results for you in just a few moments' time from this dramatic and very exciting, I must say. It's clean, hard-fought racing, but respectful racing, and the visibility in Sao Paulo has gone down to absolute zero now. All these drivers burning those tires to the ground. They will not need them anymore, and very fitting tribute here at the end of this race as we go into slow motion and see those clouds of smoke billowing from some of these cars.
Yep, they're all doing their final donuts in these cars, and well, some of them were doing donuts in the race unintentionally, because this car just is impossible to drive sometimes. Those rear tires are pretty big, but don't seem to do anything, to be honest. You have no lateral grip in this car. It's a very tricky car, but these guys have tamed this absolute beast, and not to mention how good they sound. This is what Formula Racing should sound like, and oftentimes the second tier of Formula sounds better than the first. Cough, cough, for the past decade. But wow, this is a series that I'm gonna miss most definitely. It's always been a joy to commentate and watch over these races, and this community is very close to each other, and we'll be ashamed to see it go.
We'll take a look at the results from this final ever broadcasted race here from the Formula 3.5s here on Apex Racing TV. And it's Eddie Samborski who we'll have a quick little chat with here in just a few moments' time. He takes the final checkered flag 16.3 seconds ahead of Derecho there in P number 2. Josh Stewart runs at your podium in 3rd. James Byrne will finish this race in 4th. Yuki Shirakawa in 5th. Cal Young in 6th. Dennis Cornu there in P number 7. That's where we're Where's Zimski? We were talking before this broadcast about how I was going to butcher that pronunciation. I apologize if I have. He is your P8 finisher from this race. Jorge Lopez in 9th. Phil Reed running at your top 10. That's going to be Dylan Freckleton. Richard Holt there in P number 12. Orbazlak there in P number 13. Dropping back away from that fight. He must have had some kind of mistake that we did not catch on camera. And that's going to be Art Baz, the last of the drivers to take the checkered flag on the lead lap. That's going to be Zephyrus in P15. Brugnon in P number 16. Tangreta in P18. That's going to be Joe Walker. One of the only retirements from this race in P18, 21 laps down. Rounding at your field from this final ever 3.5 broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. And Aaron, would you like to have a chat with some of the drivers that we just had in this race?
I most certainly would love to. I think there's only one person who would be very fitting to have a chat with. We've had a chat with Eddie a lot over the years, and well, this is going to be the last one. And well, Eddie, congratulations again. You've won again. I've not said that in a while, but we're back for one more time. And well, how do you feel?
I thought Carlos was gonna absolutely spank me. I was sitting on the grid and I was telling myself, hey man, you better find some. He's got you. And then the start was very fortunate. It favored me. It did not favor Carlos, so it put me in a good place, and I just put my head down. I was like, hey, just drive. If they catch you, they catch you. And then I started scaring myself on fuel mileage, so I backed off a little, and then I checked the relative, and I don't know what happened behind, but there was a gap. So I was like, all right, just keep it out of the barriers, you know.
Well, you very much did that. You led a commanding victory from lights to flag. And, well, I mean, this is a question I'm going to have to ask. You know, how do you feel that this car is sadly being retired after so many years? And if you are you going to carry on racing the Formula Bs when the Super Formula Light comes out?
Well, it's no surprise that I'm going to miss the car. It's my favorite. It was definitely a gut punch. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not mad at anyone. I don't want revenge. I don't like it. That's my opinion. I'm going to leave it at that. I would like to race the series that's coming back. There's a certain iconic event that I'd like to take part in, so I want to spend some time with that. I also would like to try the Australian Supercar. I'm not saying championship running. I just want to have some fun, do some races. And then I think I may try the Super Formula 23 not for championship, but just to see, you know, for fun, to see how fast I can go, and I'll see what happens.
Oh, it's always good to give things a little bit of a try on this service of iRacing as the roster of cars just gets bigger and bigger. And yeah, I have to agree. I was a bit surprised to learn that this car was being completely retired in favour of the Super Formula Light, but hey ho, these things sometimes happen, and every car on iRacing will eventually turn into a legacy car. That's one thing we can all think of at least. But for one last time, Eddie, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Absolutely. Apex Racing for putting up with me for all these years, all the errors, everyone in the field who put up with me. I'm not the easiest at times. And I hope we get a shot to give everyone their final say here. And I'd like to just thank everyone. I mean, it was a great series. There's nothing more I can add.
Well, thank you, Eddie Zamborski, your race winner today for the final time here on Apex Racing TV. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And that was the winner, Eddie Zamborski. And Aaron, would you like to have a chat? Do you think we should bring some more of these drivers in to just kind of say their farewells to these F3.5 cars? I know we're meant to be only an hour long here, but considering this the end of this series, I think we should maybe extend it just a little bit more to give this series the send-off it deserves. So I think we'll bring in Yuki Shirakawa as a little bit of a wake-up call. Yuki Shirakawa, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Very early in Japan, I can imagine, but just talk us through that F3.5 race.
Thank you. It was an emotional time for us. I didn't have the pace to deserve a podium today. Still, I enjoyed it. It showed me my combat bronze battle. For me, 3.5 is an valuable asset. 3.5 exists, our community is immortal forever.
Well, it's going to be an absolute shame that this car is going away, but I'm glad you were part of this final race, Yuri Shikawa. Thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Just last thoughts on Formula 3.5s.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all the time.
That was Yuki Shirakawa, and I think we may bring in Jorge Esposito here. We'll bring him in here to the commentary booth. Jorge, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. It's sad to see this F3.5 car go away, so just talk us through that final broadcast race here on Apex.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, we can call it progress. We have new cars, we have the Super Formula, we now will have the Super Formula lights. But this, for me especially, it's just a thing, as I think it's the car with which I have achieved the most on iRacing. From fighting on the midfield on these broadcast races to fighting with that and almost have a little chance to win some championship, win a race. So feels so sad for me.
Well, I think it's a bittersweet moment here. We're happy to be part of the end of this series, but it is a shame seeing this F3.5 car go. Jorge Esposito, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Fingers crossed that we see you somewhere here on Apex Racing TV, somewhere around the corner. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks to you for the broadcasts.
And I think, Aaron, would you like to have a chat with some more of these drivers? Maybe bring in Phil Reed for a quick little chat?
I will be absolutely honoured to. Phil, you made some decent progress in that race. A P10 for the final time here on Apex is not too shabby a result.
Yeah, no, it was good fun. It's been a while since driving the car and jumped back in. Didn't even know that there was going to be an organised event. I just sort of hoped there might be. And yeah, no, it turned out to be really good. It was really nice jumping back into the car. I had a really good time.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of fun out there, and of course we're used to seeing you in this series. And I asked the same question to Eddie. Are you going to be returning in any other series on iRacing, or do you think the 3.5 is sort of where you'll rest it?
Well, I've been doing a few things. I've been doing Super Formula. I expect I'll probably, or hope to jump into the Super Formula Lights when that comes. Other than that, we'll see. I think with the split in the licenses, I'll probably try my hand a few more sports car things, because I'm not really too bothered about losing iRacing over there. But yeah, that's about it.
Oh, thank you for coming and joining us, Phil. And before we let you go, any final words for one last time?
Yeah, just thank you to everyone that continues to support this series, and of course a massive thanks to Ed, who's kind of been the spearhead of getting this together, and just generally being the sort of focal point for getting 3.5 stuff done on iRacing. So yeah, big shout out Ed, good guy. Thanks for the stream, and take care everybody.
Oh, thank you, Phil, and good luck for whatever you're doing in the future.
Thank you.
And that was Phil Reed. I think that may be the last driver that we have a chat with. Certainly, we would love to chat to all these drivers, get their last thoughts on these 3.5s. I've only done 2 broadcasts with them. It's a little sad to see them go because the series has been a fixture. I remember back in the day, back when I was 12, tuning into the last season of the Formula Renault 3.5 series in real life. Then, of course, that series kind of went away with Renault joining Formula 1. Then now here in iRacing, the car is slowly being phased out along with the Formula Renault 2.0 that was phased out many, many moons ago. So it's a little sad to see it go, but just Aaron, you've been a part of a lot of these broadcasts. As you said towards the start of this broadcast, it was the first broadcast you did here on Apex Racing TV. So as we asked many of those drivers, just final thoughts on these Formula 3.5 cars.
Well, it's one of the most iconic cars in iRacing. It was one of the first cars I ever bought when I got it, I think 4 years ago now, during lockdown. And climbed through the ranks in this car and the Formula 3 aside it. So not only racing wise is it very special to me, my commentary, you know, like I said, it was the first track and car combination I ever did. So it's going to be dearly missed. And I think even if you didn't drive this car that much, it was something you always were aware of. I think everyone has given this car a good go at some point. And I do think it will be featured possibly sometime in the future. We have seen some cars return from being legacy before, so this could happen again at some point. So, you know, wishful thinking, but yeah, definitely going to miss this series.
I'm also going to miss that beautiful engine noise from the V8 engines in these cars. Beautiful sounds, beautiful racing, and it's been a pleasure being part of the series, even though I only did 2 broadcasts of this car. Now, we've done it before on this broadcast, and we'll do it again, so before we bring this broadcast to a close, right before the final chapter of this series story is fully written, I think we feel the need once again to honor what many would consider to be the main character in the history of the Formula 3.5s. And it was the man that we honored at the start of this broadcast. For many years and over 3,000 races, James Mallow was a formidable name in the F3.5 official races. Still to this day, he is one of the most successful and venerated drivers in the series. But on top of all that, he was well respected. Outside the sim, James was a father of 2 kids, a son and a daughter, spent his time and his life in West Virginia, and was also a keen baseball player, even winning a state collegiate championship back in the 80s. Sadly, James passed away on May 1st of 2023 at the age of 56, and the hole left in the aftermath of his passing has been felt by many. However, the F3.5 community has heartwarmingly kept his memory going ever since. So in the closing moments of this last ever broadcast, it feels appropriate to once again pay tribute to a man that meant a great deal to everyone in this series. So I think, with that said, I believe that just about does it for this final ever broadcast of the F3.5s, and we hope you enjoyed this stream here on Apex Racing TV. So for one last time, for myself, Ron Mullins, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, Josh Wilkie working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, and the Formula 3.5 drivers that have been a part of the series and have been along for the ride, I say thank you all so very much for being part of this send-off for the Formula 3.5s. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all again in the not-too-distant future.